because it's been simplified to its core, that makes it so that it's universally understood.
Yeah.
Beautiful concept, totally wrong.
Welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about graphic design and sort of, the ups and downs of practice and some of the mistakes we make along the way. Because, that's part of the process too. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest, a friend, an alumni of the program that I teach in. A creative powerhouse.
Oh my gosh.
It's Ethan Allen Smith. Hi.
This is great. I'm so glad to be here. It is true. I'm grateful you called me a creative powerhouse, but really,
You are.
Oh, awesome. I'll just take it. I'm just going to take that as a compliment and be quiet. Did I do that?
Did I do that? Is it too dumb?
No, I really like that actually, because it's funny. Speaking of the program, I had this idea that I still want to do. I had this idea when I was still a student here, and I really want to do it. Is we have on the walls when it's in the before times,
the long ago.
yeah, when we actually had people in buildings.
Yeah,
the walls were always filled with work, and it was always the finished work, and it was always the work that was kind of the peak of school. It was great to be able to walk through and flip through it and get a sense of what other students are doing and feel, really bad about yourself. Feel challenged for your next project. That's a better way to put it. And except that the part of the process that I really enjoy the most is the things that we've really just abandoned. Yeah. And sometimes you have to abandon work halfway through to get to better work. And we've all done that. I certainly did that.
Oh God.
Where
so many.
I'm nearly done with a project and realizing nothing about this is working. I'm literally going to go back to my sketchbook and throw it away. Well, I want to have a wall in each of the restrooms that's called I don't even know
like a museum of discarded work.
Yeah. Of the stuff that we were initially proud of, or maybe stuff that we had to abandon because it was a good idea, but we didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
Any number of reasons to abandon it, that's still valuable. And it would just be really funny to put in the bathrooms.
Just like you walk into a stall and everything's very normal, and then you open that door and there's just work,
absolutely
mountains of work in
pamphlets,
there.
Sketches, good ideas gone astray.
Yeah,
I absolutely
rejected
love
ideas.
So did I do that? Is such a great I mean, that really is the crux of what we're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, what I like about it too is that there's nothing that's ever used that particular phrase as far as I have been able to tell. There's
I mean, other than a certain 90s TV show.
I don't know. What is this?
Do you really not know?
I mean,
because I didn't watch it, but I can say it. Did I do that? I think
that voice means nothing to me. No. I do have a certain hankering for cheese now, but I don't really know what that is.
So I
shouldn't.
I actually like that it calls back. There was an episode of New Girl where they say that, and they're hanging out with a bunch of much younger, people,
Exennials or whatever.
Exactly. Well, the Exennials
whatever they thought that was going to be called. Oh,
yeah, they were younger millennials, I think. And so Jess in the show says, "Did I do that?" And they thought it was hilarious because they'd never heard it before. So I think we've actually approached a time where we can use "Did I do that?" and everybody who knows will know.
Yeah.
So I like it. Well, and then we look back at our work, like updating our portfolio is one of the hardest, most stressful things to do. And we none of us do it enough or in the right ways.
And it's the feeling that you have as you're going through that work again, oh Jesus,
right.
What was I thinking? Yeah. What even was this?
Well, and there's a piece of work on my portfolio that's from 2013, and I still keep it up because I'm genuinely proud of it. I feel like it'll hold the test of time, and it shows something. It shows a piece of work that highlights what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
But the number of projects that have dropped away that I was actually proud of before and after that project.
Yeah.
I look back on and boy, it's no wonder I didn't get hired at that other agency. We can see that you can do that really one good thing, but what were you thinking on this other one? No, Did I Do That is a great title.
Well, I think with that process in particular, like there's a self-criticality that is so hard because it is really easy to like overcompensate and to go straight into like, oh God, I hate everything. But then you have to make something. So you're coming at it from a very negative place.
I agree. And like, I'll retell a story that you've heard me tell before. Recently.
It's new to the listener.
It's new to the listener. Like the difference between fine art and design.
Yeah.
Right. And I love this description of it. And that's if you walk into a room and there's a piece of fine art on one wall, a piece of design on the other, and a viewer walks in and they have the same reaction to both. To the fine artist, it's going to sound like a compliment. To the designer, it's going to sound like a criticism. And can I swear?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And that's if the person walks in and looks at the piece and goes, I don't get it. And the fine artist is like, yeah, cool, sweet. Think about it. All right. You got to think about that a little longer.
It's a thinker.
Yeah, it's deep, man. And the designer hears that and goes, shit. I completely missed the mark. What am I even doing with my life? I should just join the army, pick up trash. I need a new line of work. And it's because we are constantly like, we are required to create not just an emotional connection to our viewers.
Yeah.
To the people who see our work, but also an explicit message.
Yeah.
It says something. They have to be able to read it and understand it. It has to be understandable to the audience even if that audience is one person or 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people, when it gets, real tricky, you're creating a piece of work that is intended to be understood.
Yeah.
And so I look back on my work. I can only speak for myself. I look back on my work and the things that are the most fascinatingly bad are the ones that were really pretty and meaningless.
Oh.
Where I was really, and I'm still really proud of my ability to do it.
Yeah.
But I look at it and I think, I was not paying attention to the message or the audience or the messenger or the style.
This is a painting in a gallery.
Did I do that? Yeah. I gave myself a goal as a teenager. I'm one of the lucky few in the world, really. I discovered design as a kid. It didn't discover. My aunt is still a designer. My uncle's still a designer.
Wow.
Yeah, they were when I was kids. They're here in town, actually. I think my uncle worked for White and Kennedy back in the 80s or something. And yeah, like way back. So I grew up knowing that graphic design was a career choice. So literally my first job in my life was as a graphic designer. And I gave myself the goal as a teenager that I wanted to design something. And of course I was also doing I couldn't play music because I have no musical talent of any kind. And, but that meant that I was always
anyone who's heard my singing will also attest to that.
Singing, what's that? Yeah, I tried, but I can't. I have no rhythm, and my fingers just don't do whatever guitars need them to do.
Which is a lot of things.
It's a lot.
I wonder sometimes with a lot of instruments, if you had to do that from scratch, would you do it that way? Because there's a lot of people did. Different things on guitars.
Somebody invented the French horn. Somebody was like, how can I make this harder?
How many times can it loop around?
Exactly. So I ended up doing all the CD covers and flyers for all the punk rock bands in town. Well, so I gave myself a goal. I wanted to design something that 1 million people saw. And I'm like, that's
wow.
Right. Like, that's cool. Except that I met that goal pretty early simply because of the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
In my whatever, I think I was probably 20. And it wasn't particularly good work. It was fine. But now I'm functionally in charge of Jordan.com.
That's quite a big thing.
If only 1 million people see my work now, I have failed. And that's a weird metric now.
Yeah.
And so I've stopped years ago, I have stopped measuring my success against what we now refer to as clicks and likes and and reach. And I find new ways to measure my success. And one of those is like, did I create an emotional connection?
Yeah.
In some way, I will find different ways to measure success on various projects. Did I create an emotional connection with a particular audience? And that's much more valuable in understanding whether or not I'm doing my job right.
Yeah.
Because then I'm getting the ideas right. Whether or not the design, and I know, and now I'm not doing as much of the design because I'm working with a team of people who are doing the design. But that's when I look back and I think, well, did I do that? Did I just miss? I just completely missed the mark because I was too focused on having 1 million people see it.
Yeah.
And they did. And
well, I mean, that gets you a lot of billboard work, certainly.
Yeah, it was a magazine. That's why.
Oh, yeah.
Healthy Pet Magazine.
Well, that's not a problem that modern magazines have. So.
No. Although it's weird though, because I was one of the founders, I guess. I was certainly the first designer of what is called Healthy Pet Magazine, which is now.
Oh, I've seen that.
Everybody has, because if you take your dog to the vet, instead of sending you a postcard, it's for all the Antec, and I'm 20 years removed from this now. If you take your animal to the vet, they used to send you like a postcard that's got Snoopy on it or whatever. It says, bring your animal back. Instead, they send you this magazine. It does the exact same thing. It's still a reminder, costs the dentist the same amount, or dentists, the veterinarians the same amount.
I mean, they do.
Dentists
when you think about veterinarians, like they're doing dentistry,
that's true.
They're doing internal stuff.
Yeah.
You got to know a lot more stuff and multiple species.
Yeah, it's true. So it was a magazine. So in the early 2000s, making a magazine, having 1 million people see a magazine you made, it's not that it's easy, but it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
You just have to be the designer on a magazine and then you're done. And am I proud of that work? That I did it? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it in my portfolio? Not a chance.
But I mean, it's a stepping stone too.
It was. Yeah, that was a wild one too, because that was like the Wild West days of the first .com boom.
Oh, yeah.
The original idea was not the magazine. We were going to create an online store to sell pet products.
Oh, I can't think of anything during that .com boom that maybe had a problem related to selling pet products online.
In fact, one of our primary competitors was Pets.com. And when they came out with their Super Bowl commercial, we were stoked because we knew that they had gotten a $10 million check from, AOL, I think.
That sounds about right.
And they blew half of that. It cost them $5 million to put up a Super Bowl commercial, when that doesn't count the cost of the production.
Well, I'm sure that was exorbitant. What with the hand puppet that they.
Oh my gosh! So it looked like we were failing. There were four major, none of us were really major, but there were 4 companies all kind of vying for this market.
Yeah,
and they were the first to have national attention. Another one was super focused, petquarters.com. That was a different one. They were super focused on investors, and we were focused on direct market. And so the original idea was to create what we called animalavenue.com. And the magazine was our way of advertising for it. And because we had my bosses had relationships with veterinarians because he was a salesman, he's like, okay, we're going to do this magazine. It's going to go into the homes of people we know have pets.
Wow.
We'll have an ad for animalavenue.com. We have an instant market. Okay. Well, the website failed. And I spent.
So this is the rare pivot to print for
wild, right?
For a media company, huh?
And I spent hours in that warehouse taking pictures of and writing down details about pet products for hours and hours and hours.
Wait, so you were writing the descriptions for the things on the website?
There were 4 of us, then 5 of us, then 6 of us. And one of my best friends was the IT manager, so he was managing the website, and I was doing all of the design for the website, the design for the magazine, the design. We also, to pay the bills, we created Avery Dennison's, the people who make highlighters.
Oh yeah,
we created their first website ever, but at the time that meant that I was literally typing in UPC codes.
Oh no!
Into spreadsheets. Yeah. I mean, this is, like I said, it was the Wild West. None of us had a clue what we were doing.
It's very fitting for their products that are still not very technological somehow.
No, their website still sucks. Anyway, so we made the magazine originally as an advertising trick. It was actually just a total scam. It was a great scam. But my bosses were salesmen and they were just trying to walk out with cash. And they did. They sold the company to this other company, which was then eventually sold to VCA. VCA was recently purchased by the Mars Corporation.
And, all right.
Yeah. And the reason that is because Mars owns Purina.
Oh.
Yeah. And that just happened a couple years ago. So I've watched all of this unfold over the years. I made no money. I made a salary while I was there. I got stock that's worth nothing. You know, they were like common shares of a company that no longer exists. And so it really was just the Wild West. I should be a millionaire. They all made millions.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And I don't care.
The most important thing is that the rich people were okay.
Exactly. The people who had money now have more money. That's great. But it was neat to be able to make a magazine that a bunch of people saw. So.
That's wild. And to make a magazine that still exists and I can go to Whole Foods and get. Oh, you know where I've seen it? It's not at the Whole Foods here. It's at the Whole Foods in Las Vegas, which is my hometown.
That actually makes sense.
Has a bajillion free magazines.
Yeah. We were based out of Southern California. So
wow.
Yeah. I worked in Santa Monica for more than a minute, for a long time. That was the worst commute of my life.
People famously love that.
Talk about, did I do that? No, this is true. Talk about, this is actually on point with that title. Did I do that? So I was living in Orange County. Anyone who's even been to Southern California is going to know how insane this is. And the number of people that we do this to ourselves when we're in Southern California is absurd. Living in Orange County, the office was in Santa Monica. There was not a chance I could afford to live in Santa Monica.
No. I don't know Southern California very well, but I know that.
Yeah. So instead, this is why I was dating my wife, and what we would do is I would go after work. I'd go directly to her place. I'd fall asleep. I'd take a nap, or we'd hang out, we'd eat, we'd watch a movie, and then I would leave her place at whatever, like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I would drive to work because at 2 or 3 a.m, it was only 35 miles. So it would only take a half an hour on the freeways when they were empty at night. And then I would sleep in my car until about 6 o'clock, and I would clock in so I could leave at 3, beat the worst of traffic, but it would still take me about an hour and 90 minutes, on a good day to get home.
Oh God.
It's a nightmare no matter what. But I did that for years. It was a fine paying job. And so there was a lot of benefits to being in that building, not enough that I could move there.
Yeah.
But so many that I didn't want to get a different job. So when we got married, we had our honeymoon in Portland and then just stayed. We're like, no more. I can't. I was spending more on gas than I was on my rent. Because I was barely sleeping in my actual home, except for the weekends of where I was living.
That sucks.
It was terrible.
That's very bad.
Yeah. Did I do that? I did. And originally what I would say is I would move back if I could live and work in the same town. Yeah. But in order to do that, a house would cost $3 million 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just, and so I have a bunch of friends who all defaulted on these interest-only loans for homes so that they could stay living in Southern California.
Yeah.
And then the housing crisis in 2008. And I was like, nope, nah, let's just not.
That was a big reason that I also left my hometown.
Yeah.
I mean, Vegas got hit very, very hard at the end of, the housing crisis. Like for a long time, there were just like plowed out roads where there would have been subdivisions that never got built. Empty houses that had just been like picked clean of every scrap of copper, precious, precious copper. And it felt like I would rather live in a city maybe where it's been there for a couple years at least. And there seems to be a limit on the amount that it can get bigger.
Yeah. I have a good friend. He works at Nike. I won't give more detail than that because I don't want to reveal his identity, although I'm not about to talk bad about him or anything.
It's Batman, isn't it?
It is. It's Batman.
Damn it.
Secretly. But that's a secret identity anyway. And
we'll never figure out who Batman is.
He and his wife are in Southern California and doing great high-level work for a company that's kind of adjacent to the work that he's now doing at Nike. The reason they moved to Portland was for that reason. They wanted to start a family.
Yeah.
And they were looking at house prices in Southern California. And it was either going to be that they would have a commute that would murder them or be so far in debt that they would never be able to escape or be able to feel like they could afford a family.
Yeah.
So Portland was this kind of nice halfway point where they could still afford a house. We're big enough that we have some big town amenities, although you still can't get Chinese food at 2 a.m.
No, or basically anything on Sunday still.
Yeah, no. But they could afford to buy a home. And so he's been at Nike now for years, and he's really grateful that he did, because he bought a house, and he's watching as Portland is now being priced out for his age group.
Yeah.
His friends can't afford to buy houses even in Portland, and so he feels really lucky.
Thank you, Zillow.
Oh my gosh.
Appreciate all your help.
I mean, that's a different podcast. Maybe,
yeah.
But, yeah.
That's my other podcast. Thank you, Zillow, about all the good works of the podcast. Zillow company.
Yeah. So we're a big town.
Yeah.
We're not a small city.
We are a big town. I think that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
A really good friend of mine described it as if New York and New Hampshire had a baby. And he could say that with some authority because he's lived in New York, New Hampshire,
with all
and
the
Portland.
self-importance of both of those places.
Exactly. I had a conversation. I won't tell you who it's with because you won't believe me. But I had a conversation.
Was it Batman?
It wasn't. It was maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter who it was. And what we were talking about was that New York, Texas, and Portland. Nobody loves where they're from more than the people in those places.
Yeah.
we irrationally love this city. And to an irrational degree, similar to Texas and New York. That's at least what we thought.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think I might make a case for Las Vegas in that, just because, there's not too many places that have the self-importance to call themselves the entertainment capital of the world, despite really having no evidence of that in
it's not entertaining.
The cultural investment that the city makes. But, We've got Penn and Teller. That's something. Yeah. Well, they're still going.
All the stories I have about Vegas have nothing to do with entertainment or things that were entertaining.
Hey, same here.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Except for the story about where we pretended to be magicians to get into the magicians convention
did
after
it
party.
Work?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Me and a group of my friends were, as art students, close enough to magicians in appearance that we were able to get into the magician convention after party. No questions asked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I opened up my portfolio. I actually almost brought the first Healthy Pet magazine. And it's the same thing. It looks like a magazine.
I would love it though. I mean, over on my little library cart here in my studio office, I have a collection. I collect industry trade magazines.
Oh,
that's one of the things that I do. And my favorite is a magazine that I have subscribed to and they still keep sending me in spite of really little to no evidence that I'm in this industry. It is about the wastewater treatment industry, and it is called Water World. And it doesn't really seem, I think maybe this is part of where the idea for the name of this podcast came from, because it doesn't seem to ever acknowledge that there was another piece of media out there with that name.
Right.
Like, for all they know, they're going to go to Universal Studios one day and see the Waterworld Stunt Spectacular and be like, wow, this is wow. I don't remember.
They really love our magazine.
I mean, I don't know that I would encourage sloshing around that much in wastewater, because that surely must be what it is. But I mean, more power to them, I guess. They've got a lot of explosions and jet skis. But I love weird print materials because they're so specific to their audiences and to like their industries. And like, the person who's designing it is like thinking really, really hard about like, the ads really make sense in this with the layout more than any other magazine in the world.
I do. I'm fascinated by that. I have a sense that we will get back to print being a regular part of our lives in a way that right now it kind of still is.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's a different tangent. But to your point, I'm with you. I love magazines that are weirdly hyper specific.
Yes,
because even if their audience is only quote unquote only, 50,
I mean, it might only be me. I don't know that I've seen a lot of evidence that other people have subscribed to Waterworld.
Well, like here's a great stupid story about why it's this kind of thing. This kind of magazines will remain really important. I spent the better part of a decade, and this is now a decade ago. Every time I got on Facebook, I would mark every ad that I saw, not just would I exit out, but I would mark every single one as offensive, and it didn't matter what it was. Even if it was something I liked.
You're trying to break the algorithm as hard as you can.
And this is years before they had any kind of real technology behind the algorithm the way they do these days. But every ad, no matter what it was, I would mark it as offensive. And it really didn't take a long time. It took maybe a year before I started seeing ads for tractors in Missouri. I know. And I started seeing, it was fantastic. I started seeing ads for like cat, like local cat food.
Yes, please.
It was awesome. And I'd mark them all as offensive. And because
that's the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yes.
Local cat food. What does that mean?
It was like a local cat shelter in, I don't even remember.
Oh God.
I want to say Connecticut. I honestly don't remember. This is so many years ago. And then of course I'd mark it as offensive. And
Soylent Cat is cat.
Yeah, who knows? And that's even now when the algorithms are hyper specific. Like if I'm scrolling through Instagram, which basically feels entirely like ads now.
Yeah.
The ads are very much for me. Like they've got me dialed. And it kind of bums me out. Because I'm not actually on Instagram because I really dig, like I get ads for motorcycles constantly because I ride a motorcycle. Except that I don't follow a lot of motorcycle. Some of my friends ride motorcycles and stuff. Yeah. But I don't follow like motorcycle magazines. I'm not on Instagram to see motorcycle stuff. I'm on Instagram to see my friends, my family, my for good photography. And so it's catered to me, but it's not catered to the platform. And that's part of the failing of algorithm that a magazine solves for automatically.
Yeah. Because
if you have a hyper specific market where you're sending this magazine, you know that your publication is going out to 50,000 people. Every ad in every one of those 50,000 people is going to respond to every one of those ads.
Yes. And that's why so many of the others have like realized that my value is zero to them, and they've cut me out of it.
Yeah, probably.
Smart Meetings Magazine, done.
No,
QSR, the Quick Service Restaurant Industry Magazine, I'm gone.
They don't want you. You're not responding.
No.
Yeah. See, and I dig that because then it's for the individual, it's for the audience, it's for the magazines, for the people. It's a community of people who super care about good meetings. Like that's. Oh. That's what I think, like that kind of understanding of if advertising, if we're just going to call it advertising, that kind of understanding of advertising, I think is so much more honest than what we get out of the algorithms in Instagram. Because yes, it's catering to me, but I'm not actually on Instagram to see the stuff that they're catering to me. Or like when you buy something on Amazon, like I bought what did I buy recently? I bought like a hammer, and I just started seeing ads for hammers. It's like, I already bought it.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot lately too.
I don't need
you guys know I'm not just like collecting them.
No. Oh, it's Swiffers. That's what it was. We needed a new feather duster.
That one we just sold you as shit. I don't know how to tell you,
exactly.
But
like
you really got to get a different one.
50,000 ads for feather dusters.
I don't know if you saw how many ratings it had, but it was a low number.
Yeah, I already bought it, man. It cost me $12. Done. That I'm already.
Oh, only $12. Oh, yeah. Oh God, Heathen.
I know.
Your house is going to explode.
For me, that was the entirety of my relationship with feather dusters. But Amazon is convinced that I now collect them.
And you have your pretty made costume.
Yeah. And like there's something so impersonal and so deeply broken about this one size fits all solution to, in this case, advertising. And so this is my favorite thing in the room. This Waterworld magazine.
Oh, it's so much better than anything I've ever made. I truly, truly love them. The other thing that I really love on that same desk is the video cassette.
Yeah.
Pears, A Taste for All Seasons.
Oh, man.
Which looks like
Pears like the local youth organization, or is this something different?
No, I believe that this is the food pears because the cover art shows images of the food pears.
It's actual pictures of actual pears.
It's the flying windows style of videography.
Is that Mount Hood?
Possibly. I assume that there must be pears there.
I don't even know what's on here.
It's mostly pears and really kind of bad photos. They've only printed the cover art to this wonderful VHS box in one color, and it is green, and it's a very good green.
Yeah.
And there's just so many images of pears on the cover that it is almost like psychedelic.
Oh, it's like a collage.
Yeah, it's like hundreds and hundreds of pears, and all in different image. Like, I don't know how they collected that many images of pears. But
they were just clippings. They were doing clippings from Pears magazine.
It's so good though. All the choices in that. I've never watched the video. I have no way to watch the video, but like the job that designer did in selling that concept of pears, A Taste for All Seasons, is so expert. Like, I want you pears.
Yeah.
I don't even like pears. I want the pears on that VHS.
It's funny. I wonder too, like I do the same, like hyper specificity is I think what we respond to. And I think there's a reason for that. Because it's, I've said, and going back to the idea of music, if I were to tell someone that, one of my all-time favorite songs, this is a fairly new song, it's only from a few years ago, is by a band called The World is a Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die, which is just the greatest name for a band ever.
Yeah.
And the name of the song is I Can Fail at Anything. And
damn. Whoever's coming up with names for them is really...
The video is them playing in maybe a church or something. I have a crush on literally everyone in the band. And they have like two drummers. The video is absolutely gorgeous.
Two drummers, so luxurious.
Oh my gosh. And the song, it's one of those songs where if I wanted to, I could allow myself to cry every time I listen to it. It's powerful. There's a line in the song that I think it resonates with everyone I've ever talked to is being this age always felt so far away. And it doesn't matter how old you are. That's always true.
Yeah.
And but if I were to say that to somebody and they also would put that song in their top 5, that means more than we like the same sounds, right? That means more than we like the way drummers drum or keyboardists keyboard or guitarists guitar or singers sing. That means that person and I have an emotional connection to the way this song was put together, the way the words were written, the type of people who are in the video, who I'm very much like, that's my entire aesthetic is everyone in the band. It's what I'm aiming at. And I think that's part of that hyper specificity is not necessarily about that VHS I'm also in love with. Like it is not just because I super dig pears, although pears are great. But because of that idea that finding a connection to somebody because of a particular design or sound choice is about the emotional connection you have to that thing. And that's way more important than, is this song properly structured? I don't even think people who spend
what does
all
that
of
even
their time,
mean?
I know.
Like I mean, I feel like that's an argument that we have in design too, is like so much of that is just nonsense.
I tell my students every term, at least every year, every time a student will attempt to do grunge design or ask like, can I do grunge design for this? I'm like, yeah, you totally can. You're going to fail, not the project. I'm not going to give you an F, but it's hard to overstate how little we cared about literally anything in the 90s. Like we didn't care about anything. The picture of the band that's in front of a dumpster on the back of the CD, that wasn't because that was an aesthetic choice. It's because they had a Polaroid camera and they were all together. At that
Taking a photo cost $4.
That's right.
We're not going to do a second one.
No. So that's what they chose. But the other piece of that I say is all of the tools that we now have at our disposal makes everything on a straight line automatically.
Yeah.
When you type a word, it's on a straight line, which means if you want to make it feel off center or not perfect, you then have to make the choice to make it off center or imperfect. Then it's not actually imperfect.
Yeah.
It's that you are dictating how that line is going to be rotated, those words. We were just cut. Everything looked like a ransom note because that's the only typefaces we had available to us. So we would cut them out of the Sunday coupons and we put together a flyer, a punk rock flyer, because that's the only thing we had available to us. We used tape.
Yeah.
And then we photocopied it. And it's in black and white, not because we really dug that aesthetic, because we only had $20 and we had to print 100 flyers. And so we spent 4 hours on a weekend to put together flyers, and we had to do it again next weekend anyway. So whatever went on that flyer was exactly what needed to be on that flyer for that show.
Yeah.
And then we were done, and then it was gone forever. Now a student wants to design a grunge style CD cover or poster or something, and they're going to spend 6 weeks and worry about how the M is kerned. And I'm like, it's gonna look wrong.
such. Oh
yeah. And I highly recommend it. I would love I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find out real quick.
If you want to do it, get it photo ready.
Yeah.
Bad news. Get out your Ruby lift.
And so
these are all old things that design used to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we understood what computers were.
Yeah, like T-squares were an actual part of the industry.
Yeah,
because you had to care about straight lines. We don't have to care about it anymore. It's already done.
Yeah, it's hard to make not straight lines.
It's super hard. Really, even the curved lines we make are straight. Even when you draw on your phone now to circle something on, like if you draw on a picture now and you draw a circle, it'll like correct it to a real circle. Everything's straight now.
Everything is the Newton.
Everything's the Newton.
Yeah. With about the same level of handwriting recognition, unfortunately.
That's probably true.
They just ported that right into Siri.
Yeah. So I do. And I think that it's a good exercise for a student to do, to recognize how disconnected you can be from another aesthetic, another style, another culture or whatever.
Yeah.
Because then you start to talk about why when I see a punk rock flyer from the 90s for a show that I went to, somebody else is going to see it and not get it at all, or think, hey, that looks cool. And I'm going to have an emotional connection to it because it has, Kevin Seconds on it. And that's really what's more important than the style. Anyway. I don't know how much this means anything. I'm full of crap most of the time, so it's okay.
Same here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and you told me to bring work.
Yes. So you have brought work.
I did.
You brought a gigantic poster.
I did. You take that side. Oh, look at that.
Holy hell.
This is the first time this has been opened all the way. Actually, I might have opened it. No, I don't think I did. In probably, way more than a decade.
This this poster is like 5 feet long.
Yes.
And
2.5 feet wide.
2.5 feet wide. My God.
Yeah.
This is like a small billboard.
It is. And I'll try to describe it. It is what you can see is a map of the entirety of the United States, including Hawaii and Alaska. All to scale. So Alaska is to scale.
Yeah, Alaska's very big.
It's very big. We needed it to be to scale because the title of this giant poster is Native American and Alaskan Tribes of the United States of America.
Wow.
And as a teenager, I worked for this tiny little company that did demographics for First Nations, for reservations and for tribes and around the country.
Wow.
And there has always been a need for it, but my boss then recognized that there was a need to create a computerized version. And this is the late 90s, when that literally didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, and so it was a win-win for everybody. And it gave me a very wild view as a goofy white kid from Northern California into a culture that I had no previous experience with at all.
Yeah.
And so what this map is literally at every single tribe or reservation in the United States. And that's why Alaska has to be to scale, is because there's just so many there.
Yeah.
This was designed in CorelDRAW.
Oh God. For those of you who are new to design, CorelDRAW is kind of like the software that you would have used to make a poster if you were really good in 1995.
Maybe. And it was, I don't think Illustrator might have existed because CorelDRAW
I think it
was
did,
based
because
on
it was like 88
yeah,
or
but there
something.
was still freehand was still around.
Yeah.
And we were working on PCs and instead of Macs. And so CorelDRAW was kind of the only game when you're on a PC. So it was with layers, and this file was over a gig. And this is in the 90s. Which is nuts.
So to describe this map a little bit more, like this is not like a simple like map. Like this has terrain.
Yeah.
This has like, I mean, there's like full waterways and like shadows and stuff. Shadows, which would have been pretty hard to do.
Oh man,
at the time.
We bought it's a terrain map. And because that was important, an important piece of the understanding, especially where some of these First Nations are. When you start to look in places like South Carolina versus the West, where the reservations are much larger.
Yeah.
It is an understanding of where they live conditionally, what the natural conditions of those places.
Yeah.
And so we bought these maps, these terrain maps from the U.S. government. And so they were this size.
Wow. So
they could be printed at 300 DPI at this size. And I don't even know. There's 352 total.
Yeah, it starts, there's so many that it's split up. The map is in the center, and then there's a list
for just Alaska.
This is just Alaska on my side. And then Ethan's side on the other side of the room is the rest of the continental U.S.
Yeah. So 352 just in the continental U.S. How many in Alaska?
223.
Yeah. So 550, 600 almost.
Wow.
600 total tribes. Well, this was a very wild first piece of education in how to design a lot of information. There was no way to make this poster smaller.
Yeah.
But this also hung in the White House in Al Gore's office when he was vice president.
Okay.
Yeah. Not this one, but one just like it. Because that was the headquarters at the time of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, with the office of the vice president. And so we filled a niche really quickly that didn't exist. This didn't exist before this nothing little company in Northern California pulled it off. So I think it's still being used in some universities and things. I think probably it's been aged out and by companies that are way better at it than I was as a 18-year-old kid. I
mean, but it does a good job. Like it really, I mean, it's kind of shocking how few like tribal lands there are on the East Coast. And even on the West Coast, like, I mean, in Alaska too, like they're really small. Like they're not even large enough to really get a highlight. Like you do a highlight for, the larger areas, and really it's only Arizona that's beefy enough that it's like a reasonable chunk of the state.
Yeah. Well, and Oklahoma as a state was supposed to be entirely reserved.
Yeah.
For Native American tribes. And of course the U.S. went back on every treaty.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, I mean, it's great that we ended up there, but this was a really good education as a designer to understand that without any cultural understanding, I had to be able to design this thing using other people's brains.
Yeah.
That I had to be able to design something that was going to make sense for the people who were literally going to be in front of congressmen, in front of the president and other places. And that I was not able to do that as a teenager designer. This is an enormous amount of cultural understanding that I had to learn. And I feel like, at least I hope, I feel like it helped me understand that as a designer, it wasn't always my job to have the right idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just my job to execute on the right idea. And so this is work. It's not pretty. I'm not going to put it on my portfolio. This is not a pretty piece.
I don't know. It's pretty good.
I don't know. You're kind. It's using Times New Roman italic.
I mean, all the kids love it.
Yeah, and that's simply
The
because
italic just says it's fun.
that's right. Because we couldn't afford to license any typefaces because that wasn't the point, and so we had to use default everything.
Well, I mean, there's a weird it looks very official, and I think that's also a job that it kind of needs to do too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it did. It did. We would do the work. We had a piece of software that would organize the entire demographics when we would count those things. So we had it all digitized, and so the maps were almost a secondary piece to the software. The software is what was very useful, especially to the leaders of the various First Nations and tribes, because the software allowed them to be really like detailed in what they were demanding in the courts, what they were asking for in Congress.
Yeah.
And the maps became a visual representation of the importance of the software.
Yeah.
And so that it looks official is, thank you, a compliment.
I think
that was part of the purpose.
I think it is. Yeah. Because I mean, it feels like it's meant to speak to the Al Gores of the world and the judges that would be deciding those cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had, this is the largest of the maps, but we had one for Alaska, one for California, one for each region of the country, that would actually show you you could actually see in South Carolina, the outlines, the very, very small outlines of some of the reserved areas. Or you would see simply a dot on the map where a First Nation was headquartered.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any land because it had been taken, 100 years ago.
Wow.
And so and this is 20 years ago that I was doing this, and still most of this hasn't been resolved. This is still going through the courts. I mean, they just finally resolved the one that's in Oklahoma at the Supreme Court level, and the city and state still won't do anything about it. Like, they're literally fighting against the Supreme Court decision. And
oh, good.
I know. And it's because the data is what has to drive these things. Because they meaning the courts, the Congress people, they need to be able to understand the data, but it's not the data that's important. It's the cultural destruction.
Yeah.
That's the actual story. And so how do you frame that in a way that a congressperson is going to hear, become emotionally attached to, become emotionally aware of, and then choose to do something about it? That's what design in real, I would design this very differently now.
Well, yeah. Like, how would you approach it?
Oh man. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be the designer. I wouldn't hire a teenage white kid in California.
Probably a First Nations person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would. And so as a creative director now, what I would do is I would build this from the start, always based on the data, because the data is what's important. But then actually get them in front of if we could get in front of a congressperson, great, but just get in front of somebody who has some legal expertise, and then design a map that was intentionally emotional.
Yeah.
That actually drove an emotional story, not just a data story. And that's probably what I would do very different now is this has to be an emotional connection. The data is what's important to make the change and to make it real. But the emotion, nobody will do anything about it if they don't feel emotionally connected to it. And that's, I think, that's where modernism missed, is that it was almost like they were trying to remove the emotional connection to any individual piece by simplifying it to a point where emotion was no longer a part of it.
Yeah.
And again, that's a rash generalization, and I'm happy to have arguments about modernism later with many of my friends. But I think the way I would tackle it now would be to creatively direct that idea. Is, okay, we need to get this in front of people who can choose to make change, and that change can happen. And whether it's the presidents of these First Nations or the chiefs or the directors, or it's Congress people, or it's the church, or it's education. It used to be we would send the same map to the White House as we would to the University of Nebraska. But I would actually have different maps now for educational purposes versus change-making purposes in the Senate or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how I would do it differently. Like this is a one solution to a lot of problems that are occurring. I think it makes much more sense to have a lot of solutions to those things.
I really like that. I think that speaks to the way I think that we've been talking this whole time. Like, the world's a messy place, and you got to have a lot of voices to make sense of it.
We do, and you know, I Dunning-Kruger. The Dunning-Kruger effect is something I teach all of my students. And do you know what this is?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yeah, just at a core, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
Which is very Socrates said that, I guess. Was that Socrates? I don't remember.
No, somebody
said it. They were right. I don't know who said it. And I think that's man, I don't even know if I can put enough emotional force into it. But I'm convinced that the creative industry and the creative people that we're seeing come up into the world will literally change the world, because we are at a time where we need creative solutions to a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And there is no one size fits all solution to literally any. There is no problem at all that has a one size fits all solution.
Yeah.
And so
we've seen so many problems created by people trying to wedge.
That's right.
The one size fits all solution into things.
And so many of the conflicts that we're currently going through, even when you're going through TikTok, so many of the conflicts come from this false narrative that any group of people can dictate what's wrong with another group and how to solve that other group's problems, or really just to tell them to stop complaining. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
And our job is to have ideas, and the more people we can have the more ideas we can have from more people, from more places, from more histories, from more personal experiences, the better we are going to be able to solve for literally any problem.
Yeah.
Because we will have somebody who has an awareness and understanding and an emotional connection to that problem. And so we're a long way off from that yet.
Yeah. Recognizing the problem is an important part of it, though.
Yeah. And recognizing that I can't solve it. I think that's been one of my, growing up and getting smarter also means recognizing how much dumber I am getting.
I mean, you're lucky that you got smarter, because I've definitely not.
I'm not
over
getting
the past
smarter.
decade.
I am not. I'm getting intentionally dumber. I'm making the actual effort to learn as much as I can about things that I know nothing about, just to get a sense of how little I can do. Because I really do want to position myself in places where I can help find the people who can make those changes. Yeah. I want to position myself in places where I can be a benefit to something, even if it's a brand for a company. I don't care. If I could be a benefit to the company in a way where I'm putting the right people in the room and not just assuming that I'm the right people, that feels like success to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ethan.
Yes.
I've kept you here a very, very long time.
This is great. You're gonna have to edit a bunch of this out, I guess.
I know.
Yeah, that's okay.
All of these I've gone very long on. Is there anything, if people want to learn more about you, where should they go to do that?
Oh yeah. So Ethan Allen Smith is like spelled the way you would imagine it. And it's everywhere. EthanAllenSmith.com, Ethan Allen Smith on Instagram. That's the best way to find me, and hit me up, man. That's great. I don't know how much you can learn from my portfolio these days.
Yeah, we always kind of have to do non-traditional plugs. I've realized, I really should update my portfolio. I'm proud of the work that's on there. But I need to update it. Well, friends, if you're not designers already, then you should know that what you see in a design portfolio is always really about 3 or 4 year old work, because we're very busy and we don't have time to update it.
No, or we don't have the permission. I do a bunch of work for companies that it's all on NDA.
Yeah.
And so I do high level work that will never see the light of day. And that's true too. But Instagram's a pretty clear view of me as a person.
Yes.
And I'm pretty open with it. It's not private, but I still take pictures of my kids who are very patient with me as I.
And you are very good.
Oh, thank you.
Photography.
Yeah, that is.
You took a picture of me
just
that
now.
Made it look like I was not some sort of troll, which is largely how I feel.
That's what I'm aiming at. You'll see a lot of pictures of non-trolls on my Instagram page.
No trolls allowed. Yeah, you heard it here first.
And I'm not even kidding. My kids are so patient with me because I'll get a crazy idea that, this literally just happened just a couple months ago. I saw a scene in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the way that they were lighting Tasha Yar in yesterday's Enterprise. And
sure.
And I was like, I think I can pull that off. I'm going to need like 3 lights and a black background or whatever. And my kids all were very patient with me and allowed me to do a photo shoot. And so that's the kind of shit that ends up on my Instagram page, along with like pictures of my feet. So,
I'm not sure if you want to put that out there on the internet, but
my shoes. I should say my shoes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's good.
Not my feet. I'm not. Yeah, that's a different bird. That's a different place on the internet. I don't.
Yeah, you maybe don't want to spend time there.
I'm not emotionally connected to that part of the internet.
Oh no, there's going to be an industry trade magazine for that now. Oh God,
I'm sure
we've willed it into the world.
Thank you, Sean. Well, this was a blast.
Thank you so much, Ethan. If you want to learn more about this show, please go check out the places that it is online. You can probably find those in the bio. I had some places set up and then I changed the name of the show. So I don't know where you would go at the time that I'm saying these words. Look at the bio.
Did you do that?
I did do that. And I should have maybe made that decision prior to, I don't know, maybe 4 hours before we recorded. What are you gonna do? Yeah. But yeah, this is Did I Do That? I'm Sean Schumacher, and someday I hope to find out if I did it.
You did it.
I did it.
You're doing it really well.
Thank you.
All the things you do really well.
You're very kind. Yeah, you're much better though. All right. Bye, everybody.
My brother tells this story, and I'll probably butcher it, but he was in a car with somebody. They were just picking random people up to go to this show, and this dude was actually like, "Yeah, I can't wait to get in a fight tonight." And everybody's like, "Yeah, that's dumb."
Oh, good.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
And then so my brother ends up at the show, and there's this other dude there that's like, "I'm feeling like getting in a fight tonight," and he's like, "What's going on?"
Love connection.
That's what and they got in a fight in the back of the concert, and that's exactly what my brother thought. I was like, "That's adorable." Aww, they found each other.
They found their person. So we're in an interesting place with this here podcast because I told you one name for the podcast, and
is it changing?
It might be, and I might try to do the intro and see maybe how you're feeling about this particular name. I'm gonna
be very mindful.
I should warn you, the initial name is stupid, but this name is much more stupid by leaps and bounds. All right. It's my vocal exercise. Hey, welcome to might help if I remember the name. Okay.